Captain Jessica Hayes stood at attention before the Galactic Council, her decorated Earth Fleet uniform feeling oddly out of place among the shimmering biosynthetic garments worn by the alien representatives. The grand chamber of the Alliance stretched above her, its crystalline dome capturing the light of 3 setting suns. She had never felt so small, yet her spine remained straight, her chin held high. "Your species has achieved much in a short time," Counselor Zixthar announced, his translucent appendages rippling with what Hayes recognized as barely concealed disdain. "But perhaps not as much as you believe." The holographic display behind her sprang to life, showing the pride of Earth's fleet, the Aeneas Hyperion. Its sleek hull, designed for both atmospheric and space combat, represented thousands of hours of human engineering and innovation. To Hayes, it was beautiful. To the Council, it was apparently amusing. "Kinetic weapons," High Marshal Vikan scoffed, her crystalline form vibrating with what the translation matrix identified as laughter. "Combustion drives. And these, what did you call them? Nuclear missiles." The derision in her voice needed no translation. Hayes felt her jaw tighten. "Our systems are proven and effective, High Marshal. The Hyperion-class vessels have successfully patrolled your own system." Admiral Krell interrupted, his chitinous mandibles clicking rapidly. "But we are speaking of galactic defense, Captain Hayes. Your ships lack even basic plasma shielding. A single hit from a standard Alliance cruiser would tear them apart." Through the quantum link displayed discreetly in her peripheral vision, Hayes could see Admiral Mason Davidson watching from Earth Command. His face remained stoic, but she caught the slight twitch in his left eye, a tell she'd learned to recognize during their years of service together. He was as angry as she was. "With all due respect," Hayes continued, maintaining her diplomatic tone, "Earth's fleet has advantages that aren't immediately apparent in technical specifications. Our tactical doctrine will be unnecessary," Counselor Zixthar cut in smoothly. "The Alliance has reviewed your application for full military membership. Based on our assessment, Earth's fleet is designated Class D. You will be permitted to maintain your current forces for system defense and basic patrol duties, under the supervision of Alliance officers, of course." The words hit Hayes like a physical blow. Class D, the lowest possible rating, below even the semi-sentient drone fleets of the Hive worlds. She could feel the sympathy from some of the lesser council members, and that was somehow worse than the derision. Furthermore, High Marshal Vikan added, "We recommend Earth accept protected status. Your ships would be gradually phased out in favor of proper Alliance vessels. This would ensure the safety of your colony worlds and trade routes." Hayes felt something snap inside her, not her composure, but rather her concern for diplomatic niceties. "And if we decline?" The chamber grew silent. Even the most dismissive council members seemed taken aback by the direct question. Admiral Krell recovered first. "That would be unwise, Captain. The galaxy is far more dangerous than you realize. The Krix Empire grows bold. Pirates plague the outer sectors, without Alliance protection." "We will take your recommendation under advisement," Hayes interrupted, matching their earlier tone. Through the quantum link, she saw Davidson's slight nod of approval. "Earth thanks the Council for their thorough assessment." As she turned to leave, Hayes caught a glimpse of her reflection in the polished floor. She looked small against the grandeur of the chamber, her uniform plain compared to the exotic biology and technology on display. But there was steel in her spine and fire in her eyes. Let them think Earth's fleet was weak. Let them dismiss human innovation as primitive. Let them underestimate everything humanity had accomplished. They would learn. Lieutenant Commander Mike Roberts stared at the sensor display aboard the Aeneas Hyperion, his eyes burning from hours of watching thermal patterns drift across the screen. The Orion sector had been quiet for weeks, too quiet. 17 ships had vanished without a trace in the past month alone. Yet the Alliance patrols reported nothing unusual. "Sir," Lieutenant Sarah Cooper called from her station. "Alliance Command is on the line. They're ordering us to maintain our assigned patrol route." Roberts smiled grimly. The same patrol route that had yielded nothing for 3 weeks. "Acknowledge the order, Lieutenant. Then power down everything except basic life support and thermal imaging." The bridge crew exchanged knowing looks. They'd drilled this scenario dozens of times back in Earth's asteroid belt, but never in actual combat conditions. One by one, the Hyperion's systems went dark. The ship's heat signature dropped until it was barely distinguishable from the surrounding space. "Now we wait," Roberts murmured, his eyes never leaving the thermal display. "Cooper, give me a track on that comet we passed 3 hours ago." The comet's trajectory appeared on his screen, a lazy arc through the sector that would take it past the last known location of the missing ships. Most alien vessels would consider it a navigational hazard. The Hyperion's crew saw it as an opportunity. Hours passed in near-total darkness. The bridge crew worked by the dim light of essential displays, their breath visible in the cold air. Roberts was about to call off the operation when Cooper's voice cut through the silence. "Contact. Multiple heat signatures at grid point 73. They're pulling something apart." Roberts leaned forward, studying the thermal blooms. 5 ships, their engines hot from recent activity, surrounded a larger vessel. The energy patterns matched a Centaurian merchant ship that had gone missing 3 days ago. "Pirates," he whispered. "And they think they're alone out here." He keyed the ship-wide comm. "All hands, this is the commander. Prepare for combat maneuvers. Weapons, load the kinetic batteries." The pirates had state-of-the-art ships, probably stolen from Alliance worlds. Their energy shields would shrug off standard plasma weapons. Their sensors would detect any normal approach. But they weren't looking for a ship riding a comet's wake, using its ice trail for cover. Helm, match velocity with the comet. Weapons, calculate firing solution accounting for the gravitational drift. Roberts felt the slight vibration as the Hyperion's maneuvering thrusters fired, invisible against the comet's own outgassing. They were nearly in position when one of the pirate ships turned their way. "They've spotted the comet," Cooper reported, tension in her voice. "Of course they have," Roberts replied calmly. "It's a navigation hazard. They'll plot a course to avoid it." He paused for 3 heartbeats. "Just like we counted on. Execute attack pattern Delta." The Hyperion burst from the comet's tail like a bullet from a gun, its kinetic batteries already spinning up to speed. The pirates never had time to raise their shields. The first salvo of magnetically accelerated rounds tore through their engines, leaving them dead in space. "Second volley, target their weapons arrays," Roberts ordered. "Let's give them a chance to surrender." The pirates, their supposedly superior ships now helpless, transmitted their surrender within minutes. As Alliance cruisers finally arrived to take custody of the prisoners, Roberts received a private message from the task force commander. "Unorthodox tactics, Commander Roberts." The alien's voice carried a mix of reluctant respect and confusion. "How did you know they would be there?" "Simple physics, Commander," Roberts replied. "Pirates need to dump heat, just like anyone else. In deep space, there are only so many places to hide that heat signature. Unless, of course, you know how to run cold." As the Hyperion resumed its patrol, Roberts sent a brief message back to Earth Command. "First blood drawn. They never saw us coming." The response from Admiral Davidson was even shorter. "Keep hunting." Commander Emily Turner had heard the whispers among the Alliance officers, how Earth ships were death traps, how their crews were suicidal, how their tactics defied all rational military doctrine. Standing on the bridge of the ENS Normandy, watching the massive gas giant Europa 7 fill her viewport, she couldn't help but smile. "Status report," she called out, her voice steady despite the tension filling the bridge. Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez, her navigation officer, responded without looking up from his calculations. "The storm system is intensifying, Commander. Category 7 and rising. Alliance ships have pulled back to safe distance. And our targets, 3 Raider heavy cruisers, still in pursuit. They're convinced we're running scared." Rodriguez finally looked up, a glint in his eye. "They think we're trapped." Turner nodded, remembering her academy days when they'd first practiced these maneuvers in Jupiter's atmosphere. Back then, they'd lost 3 training ships perfecting the technique. The Alliance would never understand that kind of dedication, the willingness to fail spectacularly in pursuit of innovation. "All hands, this is the commander," she announced ship-wide. "Initiate storm dive protocol. This is not a drill." The Normandy's hull creaked as they descended into the gas giant's turbulent atmosphere. Warning lights flashed across every console as external pressure readings climbed beyond safety parameters. The Raiders followed, their energy shields blazing against the storm's fury. "They think their shields make them invulnerable," Turner mused, watching the tactical display. "Time to teach them about gravity." The Normandy plunged deeper, its reinforced hull designed specifically for this kind of maneuver. External temperatures soared past the point where standard Alliance ships would have begun breaking apart. The Raiders still followed, but their pursuit had become cautious, uncertain. "Storm core in range," Rodriguez reported, calculating slingshot trajectory. "We'll only have one shot at this, Commander." Turner gripped her command chair. "You know what they say, Lieutenant. Humanity only needs one shot." She keyed the combat channel. "Weapons, status." "Kinetic batteries at full charge, Commander," Weapons Officer Lisa Chen reported. "Mass calculations adjusted for gravitational effects. Ready on your mark." The ship shuddered violently as they hit the storm's core. Hurricane-force winds battered the hull, while lightning bolts the size of cities crackled around them. For a moment, even Turner felt a flicker of doubt. "Now," she commanded. The Normandy's engines fired at full power, using the storm's own momentum to sling them around in a turn that would have torn any other ship apart. They emerged behind the Raiders, accelerated to speeds that made their primitive kinetic weapons hit with the force of small nuclear devices. The first Raider never even had time to register the attack. Their invulnerable shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, might as well have been tissue paper against projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. The second ship managed to begin a turn before their engines exploded. The third tried to run. "Target the third vessel's primary drive," Turner ordered calmly. "Let's not get greedy." One final shot reduced the last Raider to a drifting hulk. As emergency beacons began broadcasting from all 3 ships, Turner opened a channel to the Alliance observation post that had been monitoring the engagement. "Ian's Normandy to Alliance Command. Hostile forces neutralized. Please send recovery vessels for survivor retrieval." She paused, then added, "Be advised. The storm system is still unstable. Your ships may want to wait until we've cleared a safe path." The response came several minutes later, thick with disbelief. "Normandy. Confirmed. Recovery ships are standing by. Alliance Command requests your after-action report, including full telemetry data." Turner smiled as she closed the channel. They would study the data for months, trying to understand how a primitive Earth vessel had turned one of the most dangerous environments in space into a weapon. They would never quite figure it out. "Set course for base," she ordered. "And someone get maintenance up here. I think we bent something during that turn." The bridge crew laughed, the sound carrying equal parts pride and relief. They had just rewritten the rules of space combat, and the galaxy hadn't even realized it yet. In her private log that night, Turner wrote only one line: "Storm dive maneuver successful. Time to start working on something new." Captain James "Ghost" Wilson watched the alien merchantman pass through the asteroid field, their running lights blazing like beacons in the darkness. From his position aboard the Enid Spectre, powered down and drifting among the rocks, he could only shake his head at their carelessness. "Sir," Sensor Officer Tom Martinez whispered, as if sound could travel in space, "long-range scans are picking up energy signatures. The same ones from last week." Wilson nodded, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. "They're right on schedule. Patch me through to Task Force." The comm system crackled to life, carrying the voices of 2 other ship commanders, hidden in their own positions throughout the field. "Phantom Actual, standing by." Commander Rachel Torres reported from the EN's Phantom. "Wraith Actual, in position." Lieutenant Commander David Chen added from the EN's Wraith. "Remember the plan," Wilson said quietly. "We're not here to be heroes. We're here to be ghosts." He checked his chronometer. "Targets will enter kill box in 5 minutes. Maintain radio silence until my mark." The minutes crept by with agonizing slowness. Wilson could feel the tension on his bridge, the barely contained energy of a crew that had spent 3 days powered down, waiting for this moment. The merchant ships drew closer, still oblivious to the trap they were about to spring. Not for them, but for their pursuers. Right on cue, 3 sleek warships dropped out of FTL, their weapons already charging. Pirates, using stolen Alliance technology. They'd been raiding this sector for months, always striking with precise timing and overwhelming force. Until now, no one had been able to predict their attacks. No one had thought to look for the pattern in what they didn't hit. Steady, Wilson breathed, watching the pirates move into position. Their formation was perfect, their approach exactly as predicted. They had no idea that their previous successes had been carefully mapped, their tactics analyzed, their preferences turned into a weapon against them. The pirates opened fire, their energy weapons lighting up space. The merchant ships panicked, scattering in different directions. Exactly as planned. The pirates split up to pursue, breaking their tight formation. "Now," Wilson commanded. 3 Earth ships came to life simultaneously, their engines igniting with precision timing. The Spectre rose from behind a massive asteroid, while the Phantom and Wraith emerged from the debris field they'd been hiding in. The pirates had no time to react. "Target their engine cores," Wilson ordered. Standard void dance pattern. Kinetic rounds tore through space, each shot carefully calculated to pass through the exact points where shields would be weakest. The first pirate ship went dark, almost instantly, its power core breached. The second managed to fire a single wild shot before succumbing to the same fate. The third ship's captain was smarter, or more desperate. They tried to jump to FTL, but Commander Torres had anticipated this. The Phantom's specially modified graviton disruptors, another primitive human innovation, created a localized field that made FTL impossible. "Surrender or be destroyed," Wilson broadcast on all frequencies. "You have 10 seconds to decide." They surrendered in 8. Later, after the Alliance cruisers had arrived to collect the prisoners and secure the merchant ships, Wilson received a priority communication from Alliance High Command. The face that appeared on his screen belonged to Admiral Kenneth Thompson, one of the few alien officers who had supported Earth's military development. "Impressive work, Captain," she said, her crystalline features shimmering. "Though I must admit, your methods continue to concern some of my colleagues." Wilson allowed himself a small smile. "Because we power down our ships and hide like scavengers. Because you turn simple asteroid fields into death traps," she corrected. "Because you wait in darkness for days without going mad. Because you think like humans," he suggested. "Like predators," she finished. "The Council is beginning to wonder if classifying your fleet as primitive was an oversimplification." Wilson's smile grew slightly. "We're just doing our job, Admiral. Though you might want to tell your colleagues that the pirates have started calling this sector the Dark Zone. They say it's where ships go to die. And what do you call it? He looked out at the asteroid field, where 2 more Earth ships were already taking up hidden positions, powering down to wait for the next group of predators who thought they were hunters. We call it home. The Krix Empire's first victory celebration lasted exactly 17 minutes. Captain Alexander Zero Mitchell watched the timer count down on his tactical display aboard the ENS Nemesis, his expression neutral as reports of Alliance defeats poured in across all channels. 6th Fleet has fallen at Proxima, his XO, Commander Kelly Richards, reported grimly. 9th Fleet is in full retreat from the Orion defense line. The Krix are. She hesitated. They're advancing faster than anyone predicted. Mitchell nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving the tactical display where a dying star wheezed its last breaths into space. And their victory formation. Right where intelligence said it would be, sir. 15 capital ships, 3 carrier groups, all formed up for their traditional victory parade. Richard's voice carried a hint of disgust. They're broadcasting it across all frequencies. Of course they are, Mitchell said softly. The Krix have always been theatrical. It's one of their greatest weaknesses. He keyed his command channel. All ships, this is Zero Actual. Operation Black Swan is go. I say again, Black Swan is go. Throughout the dying star system, 12 Earth vessels powered up from their hidden positions. For 3 weeks, they'd drifted in the star's corona, their heat signatures masked by the stellar background, waiting for this exact moment. The Krix never saw them coming. Launch missiles, full spread, Mitchell ordered. Time on target protocols. I want every single warhead hitting their shields at exactly the same microsecond. The Nemesis shuddered as its missile tubes emptied. Across the formation, other Earth ships did the same. Over 300 missiles arsed through space, their paths calculated to arrive simultaneously from 12 different vectors. Krix vessels are responding, Weapons Officer Jack Thompson announced. Energy shields at maximum power. They're launching interceptors. Mitchell allowed himself a small smile. Too late. Execute Phase 2. The missiles, already considered an obsolete weapon by most of the galaxy, did something the Krix had never seen before. Their warheads split open, releasing clouds of specially engineered metamaterials, another primitive human innovation. When the Krix's energy weapons hit these clouds, the beams didn't dissipate. They reflected. The Krix fleet's own defensive fire created a web of energy beams, crossing and recrossing through their formation. Shields already strained by multiple missile impacts now had to deal with their own weapons turning against them. Multiple shield failures detected, Thompson reported, his voice clinical. Their formation is breaking. Now comes the hard part, Mitchell said. All ships, execute attack pattern Delta 7. Show them why we named our ships after ancient Terran predators. The Earth fleet struck from 12 different directions, their kinetic weapons accelerated to velocities that turned simple metal slugs into relativistic projectiles. The first 3 Krix ships died before they could even begin to turn. 4 more fell in the next 30 seconds. The remaining Krix vessels attempted to regroup, to bring their superior numbers to bear. But Earth's ships were already gone, vanishing back into the star's corona only to emerge at new vectors, strike, and disappear again. Sir, Richards called out, we're receiving a priority signal from Alliance Command. They're asking. She paused, double-checking her screen. They're asking how we knew the Krix would be here. Mitchell finally looked away from his display. Tell them we did our homework. The Krix have been fighting the same way for 300 years. They always stop to celebrate their victories in the same formation. They always choose systems with high strategic value, but low civilian population. He gestured to the dying star. And they never, ever think to look inside a star. The battle ended in less than 10 minutes. The mighty Krix victory fleet, pride of their empire, lay in ruins. As recovery ships began picking up escape pods, Mitchell received a personal message from Admiral Davidson. It contained only 2 words: "Keep hunting." Mitchell looked out at the star, where his ships were already powering down, preparing to wait for the next Krix fleet that would inevitably come seeking revenge. "Send a message to all ships," he ordered. "Tell them the hunt has just begun." Commander Olivia Phoenix Reeves studied the debris field through the Ena's Raptor's forward viewport. What had once been a Krix battle group now drifted in pieces, testament to humanity's growing prowess in space combat. But she wasn't here to admire their handiwork. "Status of the new camouflage systems?" she asked, eyes fixed on the twisted metal spinning slowly in the void. Lieutenant Ryan Carter, her chief engineer, consulted his tablet. Mark 7 metamaterial coding is holding steady. According to scans, we look just like another piece of destroyed Krix cruiser. And the rest of the fleet? All 5 ships report similar results. We're ghosts among the dead, Commander. Reeves nodded, allowing herself a moment of satisfaction. The Death's Shadow Protocol had been her idea, using advanced materials to make Earth ships mimic the specific energy signatures and radar profiles of destroyed vessels. The Krix had grown wary of asteroid fields, so humanity had given them something new to fear. "Contact," Sensor Officer Maria Alvarez announced suddenly. "Multiple Krix signatures entering the system. Reading: 8 capital ships, plus support craft." "Right on schedule," Reeves murmured. They never could resist investigating their losses. "All ships, maintain position and power settings. Let them come to us." The bridge crew watched in tense silence as the Krix fleet approached the debris field. Their scans swept through the wreckage, looking for any sign of the Earth ships that had destroyed their comrades. They found nothing but debris, exactly what they were meant to see. "They're launching recovery drones," Alvarez reported. "Standard salvage pattern." "Wait for it," Reeves commanded softly. "Let them get nice and comfortable." Minutes stretched into hours as the Krix methodically searched the field. They were thorough, professional, and completely unaware that what they thought was wreckage was slowly, imperceptibly, maneuvering into position around them. "Sir," Carter said suddenly, "we're picking up some kind of new scanning technology. They're using something different." Reeves smiled. "They're learning." "Good." She keyed her fleet command channel. "All ships, initiate Phase 2. Show them why learning isn't enough." The debris came to life, not with the sudden burst of engine power that the Krix had learned to watch for, but with a gradual, almost lazy drift that their new scanners still registered as normal field movement. By the time they realized something was wrong, Earth's ships had already achieved firing solutions from 5 different angles. "Weapons hot," Reeves ordered, "but don't fire." "Not yet." The Krix reacted as expected, their ships rushing to form a defensive sphere. Their energy shields snapped into place, overlapping for maximum protection. Their weapons charge, ready to unleash devastating power in all directions. And that's when the real debris field, the one they'd dismissed as already scanned and safe, revealed its own surprises. Automated drones, disguised as twisted hull plates, activated their own weapons. Magnetic mines, camouflaged as floating fuel cells, powered up their drives. What had appeared to be a random field of wreckage transformed into a carefully laid trap. "Now," Reeves commanded, "show them the true meaning of fear." The battle that followed was brief, brutal, and entirely one-sided. The Krix never had a chance to mount an effective defense. Their ships, caught between the hidden fleet and the weaponized debris field, fell one by one. Hours later, as recovery ships collected survivors, Reeves received a transmission from Krix High Command. She had expected threats, demands, perhaps even attempts at negotiation. Instead, she got 3 words. "How many more?" The question wasn't about Earth ships or hidden weapons. It was about debris fields, about wreckage, about every piece of destroyed ship floating in space that might, just might, be something else entirely. Reeves didn't respond. The silence would tell them everything they needed to know. In her personal log that night, she wrote, "Today we taught the Cricks that death is not the end. Every ship they destroy becomes another shadow for us to hide in. Every victory they claim plants the seeds of their next defeat. They have started to fear their own successes, and that is a fear that will consume them." Admiral Rachel Stormbringer Wallace stood before the combined Earth Alliance command staff, her weathered features illuminated by the massive holographic display showing the Cricks Empire's remaining strongholds. The room was silent, every eye fixed on the veteran commander who had earned her nickname by turning entire nebula into weapons. "Operation Phantom Dawn," she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber, "is not about winning battles. It's about winning the war." She gestured to the display. "The Cricks still outnumber us. Their technology is still superior, but they've given us something invaluable: their fear." The hologram shifted, showing countless debris fields scattered across contested space. "Every graveyard we've created has become a nightmare for them. Every wreck could be a trap. Every shadow could hide our ships." She smiled, though there was no warmth in it. "Now we're going to weaponize that fear." Lieutenant Commander Jason Chen, head of strategic operations, stepped forward. "Operation Phantom Dawn consists of 3 phases," he explained. "Phase 1. We deploy 10,000 automated drones, each one programmed to mimic different Earth ship signatures. Some will act like debris. Others will appear to be functioning vessels. All of them will be ghosts." The display changed again, showing shipping lanes and supply routes. "Phase 2, Wallace continued. "While the Cricks chase shadows, the real fleet, led by the ENS Nemesis, will strike here, here, and here." Red points flared to life on the map. Their supply lines, their repair bases, their fuel depots, everything they need to keep their main fleet operational. "But won't they detect the real attacks?" someone asked from the back. Wallace's smile grew sharper. "That's Phase 3. Every drone we deploy will be equipped with a modified version of our metamaterial technology. When the Cricks scan them, they won't just see false ships. They'll see false attacks. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Their sensors will be overwhelmed with phantom strikes against every target in their territory." The room erupted in murmurs as the implications sank in. Admiral Davidson, now sporting more gray than black in his hair, raised a hand for silence. "The cost?" he asked simply. "Significant," Wallace admitted. "We'll be depleting almost our entire stock of metamaterials. If this fails," Davidson finished, "we won't need them anyway." The operation began 3 days later. The Cricks' response was everything they'd hoped for, and more than they'd dared to dream. Entire battle groups scattered across space, chasing sensor ghosts. Defense fleets abandoned their posts to investigate phantom attacks. Supply ships huddled in protected space, afraid to venture out. Aboard the ENS Nemesis, Wallace watched the chaos unfold. Status of Strike Group Alpha. Fuel processing station in the Carina sector destroyed, her tactical officer reported. Strike Group Bravo has eliminated 3 major repair docks. Charlie Group reports successful destruction of their primary antimatter production facility. And the Cricks' response: "Still trying to engage our drone fleet, Admiral. Their communications are chaotic. They're seeing attacks everywhere, but can't confirm any of them." Wallace nodded, remembering a conversation with Captain Hayes years ago, just after Earth's fleet had been classified as primitive. "Sometimes," she murmured, "the most powerful weapon is the one that makes your enemy defeat themselves." The campaign lasted 2 weeks. By the end, the mighty Cricks Empire had been reduced to a collection of isolated battle groups, their supply lines in ruins, their commanders jumping at shadows. When the surrender offer came, it was almost anticlimactic. The final message from the Crick's High Command was short. "You have turned space itself against us. We yield." In her victory report to Earth Command, Wallace wrote only one line. "They called us primitive. We showed them that sometimes the old ways are the deadliest." And in the debris fields that still littered contested space, thousands of phantom ships continued their endless dance, ensuring that the Cricks would never again sleep soundly in the dark between the stars. Admiral Jessica Hayes stood once again in the Grand Chamber of the Alliance, her Earth Fleet uniform now adorned with the medals and commendations of a dozen campaigns. The crystalline dome above still caught the light of 3 suns, but this time she didn't feel small beneath it. "The Council has reviewed the performance of Earth's fleet during the Cricks' War," High Marshal Vicon announced, her crystalline form no longer vibrating with amusement. If anything, she seemed subdued. "We find our initial assessment was incomplete." Hayes remained silent, though she caught a glimpse of Admiral Davidson, now Earth's representative to the Alliance Military Council, trying to hide a smile. "Your kinetic weapons," Counselor Zixthar continued, his translucent appendages moving in what Hayes now recognized as agitation, "which we dismissed as primitive, proved devastatingly effective against energy shields designed for plasma weapons. Your combustion drives, which we considered obsolete, allowed your ships to run silent in ways our engineers still cannot fully explain. And your tactical innovations," Admiral Krell added, mandibles clicking rapidly, "have fundamentally changed the nature of space combat. The Void Dance, the Storm Dive, the Death's Shadow Protocol. These will be studied in war colleges for generations." The holographic display behind Hayes sprang to life, showing the same image of the EN's Hyperion that had once drawn their mockery. But now, they saw it differently, not as an outdated relic, but as the prototype of a revolution in military thinking. "We have created a new classification," High Marshal Vicon announced. "Class S for Strategic Innovation. Earth's fleet will be the first to hold this designation." Hayes finally spoke, her voice carrying the weight of years of vindication. "And what, exactly, does this classification mean?" "It means," Admiral Krell explained, "that we were wrong. We evaluated your fleet based on technical specifications alone. We never considered that your greatest weapon was not your ships, but the minds that crewed them." "The reports from the Crick's surrender are illuminating," Counselor Zixthar added. "They speak of ships that move like ghosts, of debris fields that come alive, of storms that hide predators." He paused. "They say that humans don't just fight wars, they change the very nature of space to suit their needs." Hayes thought of Commander Turner, who had tamed gas giants, of Captain Wilson, who had turned asteroid fields into hunting grounds, of Commander Reeves, who had made the dead ships dance, of Admiral Wallace, who had armed fear itself. "We adapted," she said simply. "That's what humans do." "Indeed," High Marshal Vicon agreed. "And now we must adapt as well. The Council has another proposal. We would like Earth to take command of the Alliance's Special Warfare Division, to teach others what you have learned." Hayes allowed herself a small smile. "And if we decline?" The chamber grew silent, just as it had years ago. But this time, the silence was born of respect, not dismissal. "That," Admiral Krell said carefully, "would be most unfortunate for the Alliance's future security." Through their quantum link, Davidson gave her a slight nod. They had come full circle, from begging for recognition to being begged for help. "Earth accepts," Hayes announced, "on one condition. We maintain our independence, our methods, our training, our way of thinking. We won't be bound by traditional doctrine." "Agreed," the Council said in unison, perhaps too quickly. As Hayes left the chamber, she passed a group of young Alliance officers studying a tactical display. They were watching records of Earth ships performing the Void Dance, their expressions a mix of awe and uncertainty. "It looks impossible," one of them muttered. Hayes paused long enough to say, "That's exactly why it works." Later, in her report to Earth Command, she wrote, "They called us primitive. They called us weak. They never understood that every limitation they saw was actually an advantage they couldn't imagine. Now they want to learn our ways, but they're still missing the point. You can't just learn to think like a human. You have to learn to dream like one first." The galaxy had called Earth's fleet the weakest. They had become its nightmare. And somewhere, in the darkness between the stars, human ships still danced their silent, deadly dance, ready for whatever challenge would come next.